It was bound to come up eventually. Social media and mental health, the two are hand in hand in almost every discussion, not just on children, but adults too. So, how can we make sense of how big platforms like TikTok and Instagram are impacting children's and young adults' psychological development? That's why my guest this week is Matt Weckel. Matt is the CEO and co founder of Neon Wild, the world's first personalized family entertainment platform. Their mission is to empower kids all over the world to see themselves as heroes. I think I got the right person for this discussion. But first, welcome to this week's episode of Make Sense, a video podcast that simplifies complex issues at the intersection of tech and people. There are many. So, whether you're totally hyped on artificial intelligence and ready for the robot takeover, or you want to crawl into a cave after deleting all of your social media accounts, we'll talk about that today. I'm here with my guest to help make sense of what's going on so you can design yourself into the future. My name is Lindsay. I'm a product market fit strategist, innovation consultant, and venture fundraising advisor. If you're new here, subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. So let's make sense of digital experiences, social media, and children. Matt, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, thanks. I crawled out of my cave just to be here with you today, so it worked out nicely. Um, Thanks for having me. This is awesome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Yes, great. So let's start off with our first segment. Every episode starts up with a little warm up. It's called Crystal Ball. What does the future hold? So, this is where I call out interesting predictions made for 2023, and the experts, my guests, tell us their hot take. So, I'm going to fire off some predictions. And Matt, I want you to say, if you don't know anything about it, yes, I want that to happen, or no, please no. If you do know about it, say like, yes, that's happening, or no, that it's not happening. So let's start with something fun. Okay. So loosen up a
All
little
right.
bit. Do you want this to happen? Smell goes digital. Digitizing scent is making progress and could affect a lot of industries.
Yeah, I have to say yes. I do want that to happen for sure.
Okay. You know how there's like a we used to Rick roll people, right? You send
I
a
still do.
link with a different name and then, the video comes up. I wonder if like if you digitize send, are people going to be sending, like farts and
Yeah,
childish stuff?
that's where it's first gonna go, right? I mean, I I started as a filmmaker, and there's so much history around smell-o-vision and things that inventors would try to come up with, especially in the early days of cinema. And so this is nothing new. This entertainers have been trying to capture that sense in their storytelling for a century, if not probably way more than that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm all for it. Like,
Yeah. I'm
bring
thinking
it
about
on.
scratch and sniffs when we were kids, and that was,
Yeah.
a portable scent. So, all right.
I
Okay. So,
yeah.
want it to happen. All right. So, let's do something a little more relevant. Tech enabled immersive teaching, VR and AR bringing immersive experience to students. So, this is just saying virtual reality learning enhances learning engagement, knowledge retention, and preparedness, and it grows confidence in knowledge applications. Is it happening? Is it happening this year?
Yeah, it's happening. It's been happening in so many different ways. I spent a lot of my career in AR. I worked for Magic Leap, and they were even back in 2016, 17 doing a lot of with different schools around Florida and also around the United States, even back then with very early prototypes. We
Hmm.
worked with Dan Marino's found he has a foundation for autistic adults and children, and we were doing a lot with them. And so, yeah, that's been happening, is happening. I'm all for it in that regard. I think it's great.
I think that the applications of it this year are limited. It's not like widespread. It's still kind of early adoption. But I had another guest earlier this year say they believe headsets will be like the next Chromebook for students, where schools now, for anyone listening, Matt is raising his eyebrows. So now I need you to explain.
Well, I'm a bit jaded. I did work in that field for a long time, right? And I drank the Kool-Aid mid 2010s, where I thought right now me and you would be holographic entities sitting across a table in full volumetric glory. But I realized there are some base things about us as humans that make headsets very, very difficult, right?
Hmm.
Like, and we run up against that time and time again. And I'm a big believer of the science behind the fact that as humans, we don't like these big bulky things on our heads that obscure our, this goes back to lizard brain stuff, like where we can't see what's happening around us, or and headsets just aren't there yet, right? Viewing a camera of your virtual world, or things like Magic Leap and others, where you do see the real world, but it still obstructs your vision in a very uncomfortable way. And I think it's just, I just think we have a long way to go to get the form factor in a place where we really feel comfortable as humans wearing them without it, interfering with our uh, ability to interact with the actual physical world. And I'm pretty firmly in that camp that it's going to take a lot of time.
I think you're right. I know I've mentioned it to you in the past. For reference, anyone listening, Matt and I worked together at the Comcast Techstars program in Philadelphia in the fall of 2022. Maybe I showed you a picture, maybe I didn't, but I worked on a virtual reality project in the summer of 2004, right? So if you were drinking the Kool-Aid in the 2010s, I was already like, yeah, the Kool-Aid's not
Yeah.
the Kool-Aid's not
it's
it
it's
because
it's spoiled.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, like, it was a huge headset and a massive screen that was maybe the size of a like Dance Dance Revolution arcade unit to experience virtual reality at the time in 2004. And you're absolutely right. We're still fighting for and looking for an experience that that humans can handle that would also then drive mass adoption. So will headsets be coming to schools like Chromebooks anytime soon? Probably not for 2024 either, right?
No, and I'll be honest, I don't even feel comfortable with my kid engaging with it that long, right? It's still, at the end of the day, the best stuff we have are screens that are inches from your face.
Yeah,
Like, and it's not something I feel comfortable myself or my kids spending large amounts of time in
right.
that kind of form factor.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's also not even, it's also a parental adoption thing as well. Like, do you want your child to spend a lot of time? I think it's fun every once in a while. Don't get me wrong. I still love it. It's just, again, it comes back down to, is it gonna be the next Chromebook? And I just, no, not
No.
for
Okay,
a
so
long
no,
time.
it's not going to be the next Chromebook. We'll put a pin in that and talk more about digital experiences for children in the next segment. But let's keep going on these headlines. So, speaking on digital environments, one forecaster predicted that social media users would turn their back on the algorithm this year, that community building in private spaces over the big platforms, there'd be a rise of smaller platforms. Do you think we saw this in 2023?
Look, I don't know the data like that well. So I know I would err on the side, from what I do know, is that, yeah, there are smaller companies like what Blue Sky, and I don't know all of them off the top of my head, but at the end of the day, as far as I can tell, when I look at kids specifically and their habits, where I do spend a lot of my time, is that social media usage on the major platforms continues to rise. And
Rise.
so I don't, in that very specific area, when I'm talking about like kids under the age of like 12 and 13, I haven't seen anything that shows us that we're moving in that direction currently. But
I
that
would
might not
tend
be the
to agree
case.
with you. Yeah.
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 Um,
I did pull a stat that Discord grew 80% in users from 2020 to 2023, as, another place for people to meet. But I think your observations are spot on. Social media users might circulate between the different big platforms, but we're not really seeing them lose significant usership except for Twitter. So, and that's a very separate
Yeah.
conversation.
It's not going to
Yeah.
happen.
So, so if we're talking social media, we have to talk. This prediction: mental health will become the new annual physical. So 1 in 5 Americans experience mental illness, and so this is saying that people will start to check in at least once a year on their mental health as well as their physical.
I mean, I think I'm surprised that that number is that low, that it's 1 out of 5. I would venture to guess that that number is actually higher, but people don't report it as much as they do. And so, yeah, I think that is absolutely happening. And I'd like to see it more for teens and kids, and I think we're moving in that direction as well, as us as adults have become more comfortable with talking about these things and more comfortable about getting ourselves help and
Yeah.
focusing on that part of ourselves as a holistic human being. We're also bringing that to the younger generations, which is great.
100%. Totally anecdotal, but one of my previous guests, Lindsay Jacob, ER pediatrician, and she says that the instructions they've been getting for their discipline is to when they see new moms, uh, usually they only ask about the new mom's mental health 1 month after birth,
Mm.
but that they should continue to ask about their mental health in months 2 and 3 as well. So that's anecdotal, but I like to hear that doctors are considering how to bring the mental health conversation into their practice.
Yeah, that's great.
Cool. So going into our second segment, what do you know? This is where us relatively intelligent tech ecosystem insiders discuss which hot mess has made national news. We don't claim to be experts, although I think Matt is an expert on this one, but we do know more than you do. And that's what this podcast is about, making sense and simplifying complex issues. So the headline, just one of many headlines, is Utah sues TikTok, alleging it lures children into addictive and destructive social media habits. One more kind of headline. TikTok has been at the forefront of a lot of these conversations around children's mental health, but 42 state attorney generals sued Instagram's parent company Meta, Facebook, for allegedly damaging children's mental health with its social media technologies. So could you give us some fundamentals, Matt? Like, if you were to describe what the big complaints are to your grandmother, how would you simplify it?
Yeah, I think over the last 2 decades, when we've introduced social media, there's no question that the research has shown that we've had an incredibly negative impact on, and I'll focus more like where I focus on in kids and in preteens and also
100%.
teenagers, like has negatively impacted with an increased rise of anxiety, depression, suicide rates as a whole. A largely unregulated sector that needs to be regulated has had unbelievably harmful effects on our kids, and they were very much the guinea pigs for this technology, and continue to be, even though there's more and more um, attention that's paid to it. I tend to separate, like, there's the specifics of Instagram, right, which deals a lot in the more of the FOMO and likes and unhealthy body image and lifestyles, things like that. And I think that's one particular piece of it that's also been shown to affect preteen and teenage women and girls a lot. But then there's also the TikToks of the world, which also contributes to that. But I think you also have another larger problem there, which is obviously the addictive algorithms, how those algorithms are actually functioning, and the impact of what kids are learning from those pieces, little bite-sized pieces of content that they're getting, and how it's changing the way that they view themselves, their society, their country, their everything, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's research coming out now that's showing this, but this is having a profound effect on that side of things. So I think they blur. It's kind of like a Venn diagram. But when I kind of talk about TikTok. I think about TikTok a little bit differently in terms of the harm that it causes
Yeah.
versus like an Instagram.
So
Um,
we can narrow it
yeah.
to just TikTok. I wanted to let everyone know that the broader conversation involves,
Hmm.
you know, lots of social media platforms, not just TikTok, but I think we should hone in on TikTok. It's funny, at this very moment, I want to take a drink from my coffee cup, and my coffee cup is a TikTok
Mm.
coffee cup. So I did a learning fund campaign with them in 2020 and was paid a stipend to publish 40 instructional videos on TikTok, which I did, and then I promptly deleted TikTok
Oh,
because
really?
it's like not for it's not for me, it's not for, startups and clients. I know that some people are learning about stuff there,
Hmm.
but it wasn't for me. So yeah, I have my swag right here. So you shared, Matt, that you gave a keynote at the Syndicated conference this month in Amsterdam. Congratulations. You
Well, thank
covered
you.
safe socialization. And that was the first time I've heard that term. So what does that mean? What does safe socialization mean?
Yeah, we always talk about that as our one of our pillars at Neon Wild in terms of making a family entertainment platform. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at all the data, kids are spending obviously they're spending more and more time online, but they're spending more and more time socializing while they do activities online as well, right? So I think I don't want to get all the stats here wrong, but you know, half the kids who are playing games online are doing so with friends, right? They're doing it while they're doing it in a social setting. Those numbers are continuing to rise. Also, kids under the age of 12 are spending more and more time in not just social media, but also social type interactions. Could be Roblox or think Fortnite, Minecraft, things like that. And so I'm not, I got two kids. They're 7 and 5. I think it's inherently healthy for them to socialize in whichever format that they feel comfortable socializing in. And that tends to be now more digital and physical. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with them socializing in a safe space with friends. And I think companies have to be willing to take on. It's hard. Like I make the joke that when I give my pitches to investors, a lot of times they're like, "Oh, nodding along," and then I get to the social feature parts, and they're like, "Okay, thanks for the talk," because you're opening yourself up to a lot when you're talking about building a platform that has social features for kids, right? Predators, bullying, not to mention all the stuff we just talked about
Hmm.
around anxiety and depression. You could easily bring over the issues that we have in our society in a physical realm right into the digital one, and then are you actually, you know harming them now, in different ways? So, but I think because they are inheriting a world where social media is a part of it, where communicating through digital means is a part of your life. We're doing it right now. it
Yeah.
is
Right.
it is a part of how we need to communicate as humans, that it's our job to provide these social, when I say safe socialization, the ability for them to communicate with their friends in a setting that will help them be prepared for that as adults. And that means, again, safety from predators, safety from bullying, safety from the more underlying things like depression and anxiety and other things that can come with social settings. But it's not easy. But
Mhm.
if you're going to build an entertainment platform in this day and age, kids expect it to be able to do that with their friends, with their siblings, with their family members. So that's what we mean by
100%.
safe socialization.
So safe socialization are, to simplify it, it's kind of the guardrails that you design into experiences and platforms to give kids the tools which are healthy to socialize with each other, but also keep away all the bad
Yeah,
actors and side effects.
yeah, easier said than done, right? But I mean,
Of course.
you could just ignore it, right? And I think we've taken the opinion that it's something that we can and should do for this generation.
It's
Um,
it's rational and responsible, in my opinion. So TikTok does have controls that parents can set for their children, but parents have to opt in, which means they have to know that they exist and know how to turn them on. I imagine the use of them is unknown the way that you can have app time limits on your iPhone, and I use them a lot, but I'm a fairly savvy advanced technology user. So your kind of average parent who is not as tech savvy might not even know about these controls and that they can turn them on. Is that the case?
Oh yeah, I mean it's not even if we're gonna start talking about like what a parent can even do. I think the controls that they have there are all surface level, right? I
Hmm.
don't, and I'll preface this by saying I don't think the people who are working at TikTok are purposely maliciously trying necessarily to do certain things, but like we're talking about surface level controls, right? In terms of what you can see and you can't see. um, there on 60 Minutes, like last year, or I forget how long ago it was, they had a segment where a study was done where uh, kids in China are shown a different version. They have different algorithms, right, that show them different content than they do in America, which is a lot less focused on educational videos or, obviously, in their case, pro government videos and make them feel good about the society that they live in and their government, where ours are doing the exact opposite of those things, right?
Do
And
you think part of that, and now I listened to what you had shared with me about the difference and how these safety controls for children are automatically on in China, as they're opt-in in the US. I imagine what I'm hearing though is that the safety controls are beefed up more than they are than the ones that we have available in the US as well.
yeah, I don't even think I wouldn't even call them safety controls. I think they're literally getting like the videos that they're or the TikToks that they're able to engage with are part of an algorithm that is pushed very much towards the content that is approved for by the government on that side of it. Whereas
Got it.
on our side, we're getting content that very much does not fall within a is not being controlled in that kind of way at all. And it's so it goes beyond like even like safety. It
Yeah,
comes down to fundamentally rewiring the way that these kids are thinking about topics that are very often complex and thoughtful, but are then reduced to small snippets, and in ways that can fundamentally change the way that they see the world. And that's very dangerous.
yeah, that's the danger, and we won't really know the extent of the impact for a few years as these children grow up and mature. So Utah wants a way for parents to monitor their children's activities. So this isn't just about controlling the content or having a curator around the content for children, but also being able to see everything that the kids are looking at. Is that a good thing? Is that a thing parents want? It seems like it could be misused too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always, again, this I wish it was more black and white, right? I also think there are varying ages here, right? We tend to talk about kids as anybody under the age of 18, right? And I think, yes, teens also need to be protected. And you do have to worry about, you do want kids as soon as they, especially as they get older, like privacy is important. Some level of agency is important, right? But I fundamentally believe like when we're talking about kids under the age of 11 or 12, in most cases, it is completely warranted for a parent to be able to monitor what they're seeing online and who they're talking to, and sometimes that there I think especially of when we're talking about kids who are perhaps we talk a lot about this with kids who are exploring gender orientation
Yeah.
and things like that. And you want to protect those kids and give them the freedom to look at these things without perhaps a parent or a guardian that's not so open minded to that type of thing. So there's always negative downfalls to this. But overall, especially when you're talking about the under teenage crowd, like, the kids need help, right?
Yeah.
They don't know. Even we don't always know, but like, being able to see what your kids are interacting with is your job as a parent. Like,
Hmm.
this is again my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's how I
It
fall on
is
it.
like, I do want to point this out. I had to learn about the regulation around children online for a project back in 2011. So in 1998, the U.S. issued the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, or COPA. I'm not sure how people say it. And so there are rules, and that's up to like 13 years old, right? So 13-year-olds are not meant to be allowed to sign up for Instagram, sign up
Yeah.
for Facebook, sign up for TikTok on their own, right? It's meant to be driven by the parent. But I can't help but think, like, this is 1998, and you had mentioned that the big lawsuits that we're talking about, hopefully they'll drive about regulation or an update. Like, a lot of these lawsuits are leveraging this Privacy Protection Act as the basis for their suits against these companies. But I think we desperately need to update these regulations as well.
Look, the fact that this is happening on a state level is kind of insane, right? We're talking about the U.S. here. The EU is actually doing a much better job at this than we are, as most people know. But like, this is something that Congress needs to regulate, right? I'm not going to get on my soapbox right now, but this is just like we regulate any other type of industry, from a Food and Drug Administration to make sure what you're putting in your body is up to certain levels of satisfaction. The same should be and needs to be done in terms of social media and the way that, especially again, kids are interacting online. Like, it's kind of a no brainer, right? But that's kind of, unfortunately, hasn't happened yet.
So, like I said, the one lawsuit against Instagram has 42 attorney generals that came together. There's another lawsuit, I'm forgetting which one, against TikTok, and over 46 attorney generals have joined in on that one. So yeah, this is very state driven. And I think what we're going to see, and what I've read about, is, these lawsuits are kind of taking the playbook from challenging big tobacco, in the 80s and 90s to get reform. And so hopefully it pushes, the federal government to institute stuff that can keep our kids safe, and using the term, what do you say,
Socialization.
safe socialization. There it is. Yeah. So we can get some regulation around safe socialization on social media. Mouthful.
Yeah, but let's see. I mean, the current administration, at least, Biden's trying to do some stuff around AI, but again, it's
Yep.
an executive order. It's like, it's hard. I get it.
Pushing
Like,
the
to just keep up with this stuff, it's hard.
right.
But
And for those of you listening, we are recording this November
oh
1st,
yeah.
and yesterday the Biden administration put out an executive order around artificial intelligence, which is meant to kind of further the blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights. Let's put a pin on that for another episode. Just wanted to give some background. All right. So that brings us to our next and final segment, deep dive. In this segment, we get into the details about a specific technology's implication for everyday people. So I want to talk about tech-enabled immersive experiences for children. Can you give us a line about Neon Wild? I mentioned it, but if you were just at the intro, but if you were to explain it to someone, a new parent, how would you describe Neon Wild?
Yeah, so Neon Wild is a platform that you can access from any app store and download on your device that enables any child anywhere in the world, regardless of their skin color or ethnicity or disability or gender orientation, the ability to see themselves in the media that they consume. So personalized stories in new worlds that they can take part in, but also in some ones that they already know and love, we have a deal with DreamWorks and Gabby's Dollhouse, which is a big children's IP. And from there, we're just getting our start. We launched our beta a couple months ago, but there will be social activities and also art activities and other game activities in which they are seeing themselves represented as these avatars.
As
And that's
heroes
how.
of their own story, right?
Yep.
And did you all move forward on including avatars for parents, or is that in the product roadmap for later?
It is in the roadmap for later. Parents ask us all the time, and we'd love to do that. And even kids ask us for it, like they want to see their mom and dad in the stories too.
That's really
But
cute.
yeah, we need to get there. We'll get
So
there.
we had this whole conversation on what's going on in the news and these lawsuits. So what have you learned from existing social media issues, and how are you integrating that into the Neon Wild experience?
Yeah, so again, like when this goes back to safe socialization, right? As well, let me back up here. We have four pillars that we use at Neon Wild that we focus on. Safe socialization is one. Co-creation is another. Again, so if you look at social media, a big part of that is you're not. A lot of people just aren't bystanders in the experience; they're creating as well. I mean, look at YouTube. Children themselves and their parents are the biggest creators on YouTube, right? For content that's consumed. Digital expression is the third pillar, which is again goes back to this idea of like how do you empower any child to see themselves represented the way that they want to in this world, which doesn't always necessarily mean a one-to-one connection with how they look in the physical world. And then the fourth pillar is medium blurification, which if you look at social media, we call TikTok social media, but it's also the right now it's eating everyone's lunch in terms of being the biggest content platform in the world without actually having a content budget, right? It's an entertainment platform that's also social media, right? It's this blurring of these things together. And you see this with platforms like Roblox is that a gaming platform? Is it a social media platform? Like it's kind of all those things together, right? And so we're constantly looking at all of these different areas and seeing how kids are spending their time, and then also how can we do better, how can we make sure from day one we're building in like a social and emotional layer to it, that we have this prism that we can always look through when we're creating features and testing them to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to create that environment that is socially and emotionally safe for kids. um,
Now, I know your app is young, and but you have a big vision, and you talked a little about building social components into Neon Wild. My first image is, okay, you know how lots of people watch gamers on Twitch and there's a chat on the side, or people watch videos on YouTube and there's a chat on the side. That was my first kind of like, okay, maybe there's that, but mm, then I'm not sure actually, because it's
yeah.
a highly personalized experience for the kid to go through their own stories. So what are you guys thinking about? What are you planning?
Yeah, so like the first features that we release is it's very much a controlled social experience in terms of it's not an open world scenario, right? You can't drop in and meet someone from around the world on Neon Wild. That's at least that is nowhere in the plans currently. It's much more around connections that you already have in the real world. So think like cousins or friends from school, your siblings. It's those types of relationships that we're looking to enhance and also allow kids to engage with in a digital form. Um, And the way that they will interact is not just necessarily talking to one another, although that's, kind of low hanging fruit. It's being able to be in the stories together, right? Being able to, one of the things we're working on right now is art activities where we actually take the avatars and we put them into this, coloring pages where it's you and your buddy avatar, right? And or more than one. And so again, it's really kind of mashing these things together where it's like, is it gaming? Is it entertainment? But there's always an element where you can engage with your friend, right?
Hmm.
Both asynchronously and synchronously.
Hmm.
And that's kind of in the early days, just how we're looking at it, right?
So I'm thinking about being able to share a picture of your avatar with your friends. These are just my ideas. They might
Yeah,
not be what you actually have. So I'm
I'll take
imagining,
free ideas.
a kid can text their friend a picture of their avatar, but also the way you described their environment is that the child really gets to decide who they want to invite into their world. So it could be their parents, it could be their best friend, it could be their cousins, and those people get to fashion their avatars in in the neon wild stories.
Exactly. Yep.
So
And I'll just add to that, and it's not just the children who choose; it's also the parents who approve those connections and are able to monitor those relationships.
so you have built parental controls into Neon Wild.
You have to. I mean, even just to get on the App Store, and I'll be honest, I think they need to even increase their bar of what you need to do for parental controls there. But yes, from day one, like we have a parent dashboard. Parents are able to, parents are the ones who create accounts. Every profile on Neon Wild ties back to an adult who create an account. Um, and we don't do there's a lot of like verification you can do around social security numbers, maybe credit cards. We would like to work in more verified accounts that we can verify that this is an adult. We haven't done that yet, but from day one, there's parental controls built into everything. And we'll continue to make sure that as we grow features that we're always, thinking about that and how parents can control that experience. There might be kids out there who don't engage in the social features at all, and it's just a one-to-one experience, and that's what their parents feel comfortable with. And I think that's fine and wonderful, and that's a family choice that they have the right to make.
Hmm. Well, this has been awesome. Let's make it make sense. We're going to socialize the term safe socialization for children. We're going to hope that these lawsuits against the big social media platforms will drive more regulation from the federal government, not just driven by all of these state attorneys banding together. But we definitely want to continue to think about the guardrails that we put in place for our children while they're participating online, whether it's social media or immersive experiences like Roblox or, Neon Wild. So thank you for listening to Make Sense with me, your host, Lindsay Tabus, and my guest, Matt Weckel. We hope you enjoyed our take on digital experiences and children. Matt, Neon Wild Beta, it's available on the iPhone. That's right.
Yep, available on the App Store, and by the time this airs, hopefully the Play Store as well. So that's coming in
So you
April.
can get it on Android this November. And then early next year, you'll be launching, I think this is amazing, a Gabby's Dollhouse experience in partnership with DreamWorks. So your children, users can put themselves right into Gabby's Dollhouse.
That's right. Yep,
So
early next year.
exciting. Where should parents go to sign up and learn more?
They could go to neonwild.com, or they can go right to the App Store and type in Neon Wild and try out the app themselves.
Awesome.
Also, I encourage people to reach out to me directly, Matt at neonwild.com. I'm always happy to have a conversation with any parent who wants to learn more and speak to the founders directly.
It's a great user research uh, opportunity. If you do reach out to Matt at neonwild.com, you'll be helping him and his team out, and he'll be helping you create safe socialization spaces for your children. So, as always, you can check out all the links and resources in the show notes. So, Final note, if you want to continue to be the smartest person in the room, make sure you're getting notified when each episode hits. On YouTube, hit that subscribe for next week's episode. And for audio only, follow wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you, Matt, for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful. Really appreciate it, Lindsay.
See you.